Let's talk about startups. Seriously, when I say that word, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably something straight out of a movie.
Yeah, you know the scene, right? The genius coder, hoodie up, scratching equations on a window. Then bam, lightning strikes. A few pizza-fueled all-nighters later, and they're a billionaire by Tuesday. It's this whole myth of the visionary founder. But what if that story? What if that whole idea isn't just wrong, but actually dangerous?
Because the reality, it's brutal. A jaw-dropping 90% of startups fail. And why? Well, a lot of the time it's because they buy into that movie script. They build their amazing thing in secret for months, sometimes years, only to launch and hear nothing. Just crickets. And here's the craziest part. These failures, they're almost never because the people weren't smart enough or didn't work hard enough. No, it's a failure of process. See, the myth treats entrepreneurship like some kind of magic, when it's really a science. And thinking it's magic leads to this enormous waste. Just brilliant people pouring their hearts and souls into building something that, in the end, goes nowhere. Okay, so there's good news. There is an antidote to all this chaos, a way to actually navigate through that fog of uncertainty. It's a scientific method for building a business, and it was pioneered by Eric Ries. It's called the Lean Startup. And at its core is this simple but incredibly powerful engine. But first things first, we've got to totally redefine what we mean by startup. It's got nothing to do with how big the company is, or if you're working out of a garage. It's about one thing, and one thing only: extreme uncertainty. That's it. If you're building something new, and you honestly don't know who your customer is or what they really truly want, you're a startup. Doesn't matter if you're two founders with an idea, or a small team inside a huge company like a Fortune 500. So how do you deal with all that uncertainty? You use this, the build, measure, learn feedback loop. This is the absolute core activity of a startup. You turn ideas into products, you measure how people actually respond to them, and then you learn from that data whether you need to change direction or keep going. And the name of the game, the whole point, is to go through this loop as fast as you possibly can. It's all about speed of learning. But here's the secret sauce, the part that's kind of counterintuitive. You have to think about this loop backwards. Our natural instinct is to jump right to build, right? We love making stuff. But the lean method forces you to stop and start with learn. You have to ask yourself, what is the number one riskiest assumption I'm making right now? The one thing that if I'm wrong about it, my entire business dies. Then you figure out, okay, what data would prove or disprove that? And only then, at the very end, you ask, what is the absolute fastest, simplest thing I can build to get that specific data? See how that just completely flips the script? You suddenly realize the product itself isn't the goal. Not really. The real goal is something called validated learning. That's the true measure of progress for a startup. It's just hard, cold, data-backed proof that you're uncovering the truth about your customers. You're taking those wild, risky assumptions and turning them, one by one, into solid facts. Okay, so how do we get that validated learning as fast as possible? Well, we use a specific tool. And it's a tool that's become maybe one of the most famous and honestly one of the most misunderstood ideas in the business world today. It's the minimum viable product. You've probably heard of it, the MVP. Now, let's be super clear. An MVP is not just a cheap, buggy version of your product. It's not about cramming in the fewest features possible. Its purpose is singular. Just one thing, get you through one single turn of that build, measure, learn loop as fast as you can with the least amount of effort. See, it's not about the product, it's about the learning. And get this, an MVP doesn't even have to be a product. Take Dropbox. Before they wrote a single line of code for their file syncing service, which was a huge technical challenge, by the way, the founders just made a simple 3-minute video. That's it. It was basically a screen recording that showed how the product was going to work. They threw in a bunch of inside jokes for their tech-savvy audience and just put it online. The result? Their waitlist went from 5,000 people to 75,000 people overnight. They proved the people desperately wanted what they were building without a single engineer. Or how about Zappos? The founder's big leap of faith assumption was, would people actually buy shoes online? It seems obvious now, but it wasn't then. So instead of buying a massive warehouse and filling it with shoes, you know what he did? He went to local shoe stores, took pictures of their shoes, and put them on a really basic website. When someone bought a pair, he'd literally run to the store, buy the shoes for full price, and ship them himself. He was losing money on every single sale, but he wasn't trying to make a profit. He was buying learning. He proved his biggest assumption before spending a single dime on inventory.
It's the exact same story with Airbnb. They didn't start off by building some giant global booking platform. The founders were just broke. They needed to make rent. There was a big design conference in town, so they literally just put a few air mattresses on their floor, snapped some pictures, and threw them up on a dead simple website. Their MVP wasn't a platform, it was their own living room.
You know, Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, said it best. If you aren't embarrassed by your first release, you launched too late. That just captures the whole spirit, right? The point of an MVP is never, ever perfection. It's speed. If you wait until you're actually proud of it, you've waited way too long to start learning what really matters.
Okay, so you've launched your MVP. You're getting some data back. That's awesome. But how do you know if you're actually making progress? How do you know if any of it is working? Well, that requires a whole new way of looking at the numbers, a kind of accounting that's built specifically for the chaos of a startup. And to do that, you have to learn to tell the difference between two kinds of metrics. On one hand, you've got vanity metrics. These are the ones that make you feel good, they look great going up on a chart, but they're lying to you. And on the other hand, you have actionable metrics. These are the ones that show you real cause and effect. They're the ones that prove you're actually learning something useful. Just think about it. A number like total registered users can pretty much only go up and to the right. It feels great, but it hides all the problems. But an actionable metric, like cohort conversion rate, well, that tells you if the changes you shipped in February actually made the February signups more likely to become paying customers than the people who signed up in January. See the difference? It's like a lie detector for your product. This whole method is called cohort analysis, and it really is the gold standard for this stuff. You just group your users together based on when they signed up. Say, the January cohort, the February cohort, and so on. And then you can compare how these different groups behave over time. It gives you a really clear, objective way to see if your changes are actually making things better. So, this whole system we've been talking about, build, measure, learn, the MVP, this new kind of accounting, it's all leading somewhere. It's all designed to bring you to one critical moment, a single meeting where you have to face the most important decision any startup will ever make. In that meeting, you look at all your actionable metrics, all that real data from your experiments, and you have to decide. Do we persevere? Do we keep going on this path because the data shows it's working? Or do we pivot? And a pivot isn't quitting, it's not giving up. It's a structured, intelligent course correction. You change your strategy, but you don't change your overall vision. This pyramid here really shows it perfectly. Your vision, that big ultimate goal, that's the foundation at the bottom. It stays put. But the strategy, the way you're trying to achieve that vision, that can change. In fact, it should change based on what you're learning. And that change, that's the pivot. Let's look at a pivot in the wild. There's this 3D avatar company, IMVU. They first launched as an add-on for instant messengers like AIM or MSN Messenger. The whole strategy was to help you chat with your existing friends. But the data came in and it was bad. The strategy was failing. But the data also showed something fascinating. The very few users who were actually sticking around, they loved using it to talk to complete strangers. So they pivoted. They killed the add-on and relaunched as its own social network for meeting new people. The vision was the same, connecting people, but the strategy was completely different. And guess what? Their growth just took off. So that's really the heart of the lean startup. It's a system to stop wasting time and to start, well, engineering success. And it leaves all of us with a really important question we should ask about any project we're working on, big or small. What is your single biggest, riskiest leap of faith assumption? And then, what is the absolute smallest, fastest experiment you could possibly run, maybe even today, to find out if you're actually right?